Hey guys, me again. There's going to be a series of videos coming out this week. There's a lot of stuff that I really want to talk about, and I want it to be released whenever it's still really topical. Trying to bring in viewers, small channel, things like that. The music that you're hearing in the background is by an artist named Shiro. You can check out his SoundCloud in the description below. He's doing me a really big solid by letting me use his music, especially for political content. In the final panel you're going to be seeing is by an artist. His link is in the description below as well. He's a 3D modeler. Check him out if you have any sort of small commissions, anything like that. He was really quick about everything. It was spur of the moment, and I got the whole thing in about, I want to say, an hour. So he's pretty good. He knows what he's doing. Anyways, let's get to it. The first thing that I really want to talk about is the statue removal. Now, there was the removal of the Liberty Place Monument in New Orleans on Monday the 24th. The reason that they removed it is because of the church shooting that took place, where a white supremacist killed, I believe it was 9 black people in a church. So they decided that we have to remove everything that's Confederacy related because racism. Now, I find this to be rather idiotic overall. The reason being, statues and monuments of the past, even if they're of horrific times, in modern times serve as reminders as what not to do. They still remember the people that took part in this. They still remember the lives lost, most often. However, they're not honoring them. They're not honoring them for the deeds with which they've done. They're honoring them as honored dead. They're remembering them as deceased, as citizens, as people, as humans. Everyone's human, no matter how terrible their ideas may be. The Liberty Place Monument in particular was about a paramilitary action that took place during the Confederacy, where a group of white supremacists went and took over the town and then basically asked Robert E. Lee, "We want control of this town." He said no, and then they stepped down. The monument was put into place to remember those lost. It lists the names of the police officers that were killed during the time of this uprising. Now, the statue has been defaced numerous times by activist groups saying things along the lines of Nazis and things like this. Anarchy symbols have been placed on it, so it's most likely Antifa or Black Bloc, the groups responsible for such actions. You know, and I can understand the outrage that people might have over something like this. It's obviously a very upsetting time and a point in our nation's history. But we can't forget it. We can't just cast it aside and pretend like it never happened. It must be remembered. Statues and monuments are a way of visualizing the history, of bringing the history back into the real world. Seeing the names of people written onto a plaque who perished is a way to remember, you know, this person right here. This was a real person, not just a name in a book. This is an actual human being. They're places to start conversations. There are numerous monuments throughout the world for people and places and acts and things that are horrific. The Colosseum was a place where slaves were pitted against one another, against lions, against tigers and chariots, for sport. Should that be taken down as a moment in history that should never be remembered, where slaves were slaughtered by the hundreds of thousands, just so that rich people could cheer and laugh? There's the Holocaust Museum. Should that be destroyed? Should Auschwitz be destroyed? After all, it is a place where millions of people were killed simply for their beliefs, simply because they were a minority, simply because that they were disabled. There's a I forget what it's called, but there is a park in Belgium where Stalin, Lenin, Mao, all sorts of communist leaders and Soviet leaders, not Mao obviously, but Soviet leaders are memorialized in statues. And they erected this after the end of the Soviet Union, not as a not as a means to honor them, not as a means to say that the things they did were good, but as a place for people to look at and say, and for conversations to happen around this. Why can't these monuments be used for that? Why do they have to be a monument to slavery? Why do they have to be a monument to racism? Why can't people move past that idea? Why can't people look past that idea? The point I'm trying to make is that the removal of our history will only allow us to repeat it. The removal of our past is only going to doom us. Whenever we forget horrific deeds that were done in some sort of a name, whenever we forget those who perpetrated them, whenever we stop looking at them and recognizing them and seeing them really for what they are, then we're going to repeat them. We're doomed to do it. You can see that with the segregation that's taking place on college campuses. Segregating out white people from minorities and blacks from Latinos and all of this, and they're forgetting the messages of Martin Luther King. That he didn't want to be seen as a black man. He didn't want his sons to be seen as black men. He wanted them to just be seen as men. People are already forgetting that. What are we going to forget whenever we start removing the physical manifestations of our history? And how far is it going to go? Thomas Jefferson had slaves, but he is one of the most important people in our nation's history. It would be a complete disservice and dishonor to his legacy and record to remove his statues, to remove his physical manifestations in the modern times. There's always going to be darkness in history. You can't look at history through a modern lens because all you'll see is horror. The town has stated that they are going to be removing 3 other statues sometime probably very soon, and they're saying they're putting them in storage. They don't know what they're going to do with them afterwards. They're gonna look into putting them in a museum or relocating them somewhere. If they do, I hope it's some sort of a park or a place where they can be remembered, where discussions can take place. Because we can't forget our past, and we can't run from it. It'll only catch up. I really want to thank you guys for watching. Again, this is the first video in a series of videos I'm going to be having this week. If you have something to add or something you disagree with me about, I understand this is another rather controversial topic I'm covering. Please comment down below. I'd really appreciate it. Your feedback is definitely what fuels conversation, and I genuinely do appreciate it. Again, I really want to thank you guys for watching, and I hope you have a great day.